Good morning to you all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for being here. Lone Silencer, Anthony DiMaggio, they're in the chat as we speak. Good morning to you and everyone else that's watching. If you're watching us on YouTube right now on the Sal Greco Show channel, please hit the like, share, subscribe button, hit the notification button as well. If you're watching us on Rumble on the Sal Greco Show channel as well there, please hit the Rumble button, hit the like button, follow us on there as well. And if you're watching us streaming live on X on the @Sal Greco handle, please like this, follow me on X as well, and share this out to all your friends in the low information bubble. You know, listen, there's a lot to get to, so I'm going to backtrack, because if you do follow us and you follow us on Instagram and TikTok on the Sal Greco Show handle, and also on YouTube, you're going to see that I love to put up short videos. I get to information, all these little tidbits and kind of like little nuggets that then when we get to the show, I can either address in a better capacity or just address the entire subject a little better than just making a quick 1-minute video or 2-minute video. So first order of business, there was... Oh, shout out to you, Frankie Paliguachi's in the chat. Shout out to you, Frankie. I hope everything's going well for you. So first thing I was going to address is I forgot to address this on Monday's show. There's a whole thing going on in the New York City Police Department involving shoe shine polish. It's ridiculous. But let's play the video, and we'll get into this whole subject.
The NYPD's Emergency Assistant Unit now put themselves on the radar. And shoe polish seems to be the hot topic amongst those that work there. So apparently Director Graziano says that shoe polish is sexist, while as Dr. Ornsteiner says that why do cops get shoe polish, but the NYPD civilians don't? Now, you know, in a lot of these NYPD precincts, shoe polish machines, they're not really... in operation anymore, and they don't work well, or they don't work at all. But Director Graziano only shows up to work about 1 day a week. So there's a lot of questions there. I wonder what Internal Affairs are going to do, because they're too busy fraternizing and putting up Christmas trees with NYPD cops they're targeting and doing all kinds of crazy things in Internal Affairs. So we'll see what goes on with that. But Director Graziano only showing up once a week sounds Richie Taylor-esque to me. And the new Deputy Commissioner of Employee Relations, Maria Ciotaro, congratulations. You just inherited this mess. Wonder what the soccer mom's going to do about this one.
Here's the issue with this, obviously. You heard about this Director Graziano, who's a civilian and works for the health and wellness part of the Employment Assistance Unit. Employee Assistance EAU, which, you know, if you're in the New York City Police Department, you always see the posters on the wall. Call EAU if you need anything. They call it like 1085. It's always on the poster. So this unit it falls under employee relations. So Maria Ciotaro just the other day was announced as the new deputy commissioner. So now all of this would fall under her, all of employee relations. The problem is Director Graziano, who's a civilian and runs health and wellness. He says that the shoe polish, and remember, shoe polish has been in the New York City Police Department forever. It's, you know, you shine your shoes, they want you to look nice. It's in the patrol guide, you know, they want you to have the admin pants. It doesn't say you have to have shoe polish, but shoe polish has been in the police department for a long time, even when I was on it. And it usually is a shoe polish machine somewhere in the precincts. Some of them don't have it, or it's out of commission. So the shoe polish that Mr. Graziano's calling sexist, it's really just shows that I don't know why you put certain individuals in place to be in charge of certain units. This gentleman, from all accounts, does not come to work. He's there once a week. This is, you know, you better be there Monday to Friday, or you fall under Deputy Chief Richie Taylor, area, or his vicinity of what he's been doing with community affairs, where Nobody knows when he comes to work, how he comes to work, where he is, what he's doing. You just know that somehow he's on roll calls showing up that he's working, and he's not even in the country. So, and no one, and he says that, he's working from home. Everyone's working from home in the police department now, apparently. So this gentleman is barely ever seen at work. So that's the number one issue with everything. His little sexist comment led the Sal Greco Show to dig into this individual, only to find out that Mr. Graziano doesn't come to work. So that's an investigation in itself. Then we have this Dr. Ornster, whatever his name was. That doctor is saying that the shoe polish should go to the civilians. Why is it just for the cops? But civilians don't have to wear shoes like they wear normal work clothes, like casual clothes. Cops have to be in uniform. That's the point of the shoe shine, is to polish your shoes, which they want you to have boots. So that was the whole purpose of that. I don't know where that comment came from. But Maria Ciotaro's got her hands full because now she's going to have to address this problem in EAU. But that just shows you what the hell's going on in the police department, where they're worried about shoe polish when the guy running the unit is not even at work, like ever. And this is like, here it is. Here's the soccer mom. Oh, welcome to employee relations. And by all accounts, Miss Sotero has, she comes with a nice resume. A lot of people like her. At the same time, she now has to address this issue, which, Graziano doesn't even come to work, apparently. So, yeah, she started as a PAA. She rose up the ranks. So then how do you have this guy, Graziano, running around, not even working or not coming to work? He's there as a tyrant once a week. Sounds familiar. Actually sounds like the person that runs the place who's there every day as a tyrant overall, the soccer mom. So the next issue is, I don't know if people noticed, but we finally have a new corrections commissioner. So I had addressed this. So let's play this for everyone.
In the evening of February 1st, 2026, a 21-year-old police cadet, Ire Selexoy, decided it was a good idea to go and try to strangle a 51-year-old female on the corner or in the vicinity of East 4th Street in Brooklyn. Yeah, that's not going to work out well for this 21-year-old police cadet. I mean, can the soccer mom or the New York City Police Department vet these people they are hiring better? I don't know. Also, Mayor Mamdani has selected a new corrections commissioner, and yes, he was a formerly incarcerated member of Rikers Island in the 80s, but he was also a former deputy commissioner of corrections, so he knows the system well. He will be working hand in hand with Nicholas Demo, who is now the administrator for the federal government for the receivership in regards to Rikers Island. His name is Stanley Richards, and hopefully the corrections union will work well to try to fix the issues going on at Rikers Island.
So there you have it, folks. We have a new commissioner at corrections. Before I address that, though, the first part, and here he is. He's a formerly convicted felon. I don't know why. Is it a big deal? But we'll get to that in a second. The cadet. The cadet was 21 years old. Now, I understand, people have messaged me saying, oh, the guy he was a good kid. Listen, I'm going to get to something else in the next segment, and the next thing I'm going to address. You can be the greatest human being on earth, but when you mess up, you fess up. And you can't have people say, oh, but they were a good guy, or they were a good girl, but here's the bottom line. Did you commit a crime, which that cadet clearly did? Then you have to answer for and atone for your mistakes. This society does not want to hold anyone accountable. It's like if you're in uniform and another cop messes up, back the blue, bro. Yo, bro, we got to back them, bro. If you shot someone in the head and killed them, bro, it happens, bro. That's the nature of the job. Bro. No. That's not how the nature of the job is. So you need accountability. And if you can't look at each other in the face and have any of that, and you're too busy using these big words, and we'll get to that later, then you are low information. You have a low intellect, and, God help you, because you really need to evolve as a human being rather than think like a Neanderthal. So to get to the second part, the corrections commissioner, who is, they're saying is a formerly incarcerated person to lead the DOC, right? Now, they're not telling you that he actually was the first deputy commissioner of corrections. He was a first deputy commissioner, and he runs a fortune society where he has been advocating for decades about trying to change the culture inside the prison, meaning what do prisoners need? How do we, you have to bridge the gap. There's officers running around, there's prisoners running around, and conditions are atrocious at Rikers Island. I was there. I know. I used to bring prisoners there myself. You wanted to escape the minute you walked in. I can only imagine working there, being incarcerated there. He was always one to advocate for change. So then he became the first deputy commissioner of corrections. Now he's going to be running it. And he's going to be the person that is tasked as being the main liaison back to Nicholas Demmel, who's the court-appointed administrator for the federal government for the receivership for Rikers Island. I know some people have an issue with that. I think this probably is not a bad idea coming from someone who was in corrections. First, he was incarcerated in the 80s, right? Then he made something with his life, all the way to the point that he made it the first deputy commissioner of corrections. Well, you didn't hear anything back then. He didn't commit any crimes as a deputy commissioner. And now he's the commissioner. So I want this out there that, you should wish this guy luck, especially those in corrections. I mean, it's awful. Hopefully the union can work with him as well. There's a lot of issues, corrections officers are doing 16-hour days, sometimes more. They're not staffed correctly. And a lot of that falls on the former commissioner now, McGillney Liddy, who absolutely did not understand the culture. She never wore a uniform. Here we have somebody who was in the opposite side. He was incarcerated. He's trying to change the system for the better. And now he was also a commissioner at one point. So let's see how he does as far as commissioner of corrections. Look, there's a huge thing here. DOC faces retirement waivers, 3 big recruit classes at 20 years on the job. That's another issue, right? So recruiting. So this is something that he could get off his feet and be on the roll. And hopefully, as he's rolling forward, we see how that goes. But to just instantly throw water on the guy just because he was formerly incarcerated 40 years ago. I thought when you pay your debts to society and you don't repeat offend, you're welcome back to society. So, I don't agree with that. And I'm wishing him well, and I'm hoping that the corrections could move in a step forward instead of taking 20 steps back with the previous commissioner. The next thing we're going to get to, by the way, 92 Charlie, good morning to you, Baby Lou, HFL, and Terry Murnane. I see you all in the chat. So the next thing I'm going to get to, sanitation. There was a whole thing that happened with sanitation. I posted this picture of a car that seemingly is blocking their license plate, whether they're obstructing it. Look at that. You see that? You can't do this. Now, there's a million different things that have come up with this. So let's play what I had said. I put up a video, and this attracted a lot of these Joe Cop types. So let's play this. So it's amazing that in New York City, we see sanitation department official vehicles. Now, these cars have decals on it. You know that it's a sanitation vehicle, but the license plate is obstructed. Now, if you were to do this on your personal vehicle, albeit if you work for the city agencies and municipal agencies, or if you did it personally, it's a summons, and probably get your car towed with enough summonses with that. Now, I don't know what this is about. I guess someone wants to avoid the tolls, which would go to the city anyway, who pays for this stuff. So I don't know what this is really about,
But to the Joe Coppers and the John firefighters and the Bob sanitation worker that wants to jump up and say, you just ruined this person's day or they're going to get suspended. Yeah, well, you do that on your personal car and we'll see what happens to you, because you're probably going to get summons and have your car towed.
And this is the first thing I'm going to say. Baby Lou had a good comment. I don't understand what's the purpose of a city agency vehicle doing this. That is the exact point, Baby Lou. So this is what's going on here. From what I'm gathering now, apparently the city holds the person that drives the official vehicle responsible. This is alleged. I don't know if this be a fact. I can't get anyone that's officially in sanitation some kind of policy or whatever it is. If they go past a red light camera and get zapped, which you shouldn't be doing that anyway, or going down a bus lane and get zapped, you shouldn't be doing that either, they get a summons. Instead of the city taking care of this, they're saying that the individual who is driving the vehicle would have to pay for it. So what do? Covering the plate so that nothing happens, which is you're playing with fire with that, which now you're just caught. Now, on the flip side, you're working on official duty and you're going in your vehicle, which you work for an agency, sanitation, fire department, police department, housing, any one of these agencies, city municipal agencies, and you get summons for whatever the reason, whether it's passing a red light, the bus lane, anything. How is the employee responsible for that if they were going lights and sirens, whatever the case is, to whatever emergency or whatever? How is the employee responsible for that? That is a union issue, and that means that the union, the sanitation union, should step up and say something and say, hey, our guys are not going to pay for these summonses because my guys are working for you. They're driving around, and during the scope of their official duties, there's a camera, whatever the case is. But the question is, was this something that's being done for that reason, or there's some other reasoning behind it? You don't want people to know, as far as your own agency, where you are. You're not supposed to be somewhere, so you cover your license plates. I don't know. The bottom line here is it seems there's two sides of this coin. You could play either side, and we need an answer to it, because and I'm not the only one receiving these pictures. That apparently MTA also does the same thing. So, and this is another thing. New York City announces crackdown on ghost cars and joint effort between NYPD and the Department of Sanitation. Here's the thing. If you put that, obstruct your license plate as a civilian in your car, you're getting summoned. You might get even worse. The car might get towed. You're going to get destroyed. If you work for the New York City Police Department and your personal vehicle has an obstructed license plate, you're going to get one from the Integrity Control Officer. That's the ICO, the lieutenant. He's going to run around in the parking lot to see if you have, because someone told him to go do that. And if you have your plate obstructed, you're going to get one. You're going to get summons, too, if you do that. If you leave your car like that. Someone can write you a summons. It doesn't matter who the hell you are. So why are we doing this on an official vehicle? It's got decals. It's an official DSNY car. I don't know. But apparently the Joe Coppers and John firefighters and Bob sanitation, I'm going to tell you this one last time. When you have an argument to say something, or you want to put your point across on issues, you actually discuss the issues. The ad hominem attacks shows that you're not only low information, you're low intellect. You're yeah, bro. You're in the corner, bro. I'm going to get you, bro. Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. That's who you are. And I don't know if there's any hope for you in society. Your level of expansion is very small, because you're almost like the caveman, where you're just used to that little routine, and back to blue, back to firefighter, back to sanitation. If you go and commit a crime, back them anyway. If you run someone over in a DWI, don't worry about it, which we're going to get to in another second. So I don't understand what the ad hominem attacks are for. But you're going to get blocked now, because I've had it with all of you. I don't want to discuss anything with you. Your mind is, your brain is like that big, but maybe more like that big. I don't know. you need to evolve as a human being, or don't come to the schoolyard. You come to the yard, you want to play basketball, you want to play whatever, you want to play baseball in the yard. If you're not ready to play, don't come. Keep watching or keep your mouth shut or go in a corner with the other Joe Coppers and, yeah, bro, I'm going to fix this, bro, because we're going to get to another issue in 2 seconds that happens. So we'll see what happens with this sanitation stuff, MTA. If the union steps in, who knows? But then we find out about something else, right? Yesterday. It appears that now that NYPD sergeant that we exclusively reported on here with the Taconic Parkway crash that was DWI and all the Joe Coppers came out of nowhere. Let's play this because something happened yesterday.
So Sergeant Howell from the New York City Police Department, if you remember, who caused a fatal accident driving northbound in the southbound lanes of the Taconic Parkway, instantly killing a 30-year doorman innocently driving home, was now re-suspended by the New York City Police Department. And if you have been following the Sal Greco Show, we exclusively reported how this accident had alcohol involved. There was a breathalyzer refused on the scene, that the state troopers apparently did not arrest this sergeant on the scene, and they did a toxicology report. And now we come to find out that when she was originally suspended, she was modified because there were phone calls made apparently from the chief of department's office, and now she is suspended anyway. What the hell is going on with this, soccer mom?
So remember, I had Joel Ramirez on, and he was talking about this very fact that they were going to modify her so that she had time to scramble. So, and this is the theory behind this. But again, I have exclusively reported on this entire incident, and by all accounts, have not been wrong on anything. And now with a suspension, it just cements the fact of what I said the first day was correct on the now up to date. I'm going to also teach you all one thing. When you get arrested, when you arrest someone and you go to arraignment, when you get arraigned right after your arrest, the prosecutor offers you something. Well, let's say we'll take DWI, for instance. It's your first time. They're going to say, we're going to make it a violation if you blow under a 0.8. So if you're, a 1.5 was the rule. 1.5 or above, you're going to trial. 1.49 and below, they're going to make you an offer on the spot. So the offer could be anything from a violation to you go to an alcohol rehab program, you're suspended license for 6 months to a year, all of these things. You say, no, I'm not pleading. I want to take it to the next thing. So you're going to pay a lawyer. Everyone's making money. When you go to that next date, they're going to say, what's the offer? It's the same one from the first time. It doesn't change. So the point here is what I said originally, all the Joe Coppers throwing their little 2 cents in, it never changed. And now she should have been suspended, but the reason she wasn't suspended is to give her time to vest out, which is where the cover-up is. You all, a lot of you Joe Coppers out there, you need to just, I don't know, stay in your own little bubble of Joe Cops. And this is what I meant before. If you use the word snitch or rat, you're automatically blocked. I don't have the intellect to keep up with you because it just, I don't know where you're getting your intellect from. Your low intellect. You can't be a journalist and a snitch or a rat. That's street thug and Joe Cop terminology. That may work with your little circle, but doesn't work with the rest of society. And the problem with this is, once again, is why are we not discussing the loss of life here? There was a loss of life, and the Joe Coppers just ran to defend someone and did not even mention once the poor soul that was coming home from work after working as a doorman. He's been doing the same job for 30 years. Who cares? We got to race to back the blue because that's what we do. Don't hold anyone responsible. And, hey, have a beer on me. Is that the mentality of a Joe Cop? Or I don't know. And I hate to keep picking on him, but That's the last time I'm addressing Joe Cop, John Firefighter, or Bob Sanitation. Either you hire your intellect and evolve, or you could stay in the caveman section with the Neanderthals, because there's just no way of discussing things. Ad hominem attacks, that's a street thug. That's what they do. People that have discussions want to evolve and move forward. I don't know what your issues are, but if you have issues with certain things, then you have a discussion, not ad hominem attacks. So the next thing I'm gonna say is, we have a deep fake that we were talking about on the last show. I had me and Jack, my producer, co-host, and wingman. We were discussing this deep fake photo, which we thought was real, but the email is actually real in regards to this, and that's Zohran Mamdani somehow as a child pictured with Jeffrey Epstein, aka the unscrupulous billionaire. So they actually asked him about this at the press conference, I think a day or two ago. So let's see what he had to say. So at a recent press conference, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani was asked by a reporter about these headline-making deep fake AI photos showing a young Zohran with a recently deceased unscrupulous billionaire.
So my question is, one, just personally, how does it feel to be subject to that type of misinformation? But then more from a policy standpoint, how alert is the city to the dissemination of this kind of AI-generated misinformation when it comes to city services, public health, elections?
So I can tell you that just earlier this morning, I was having a policy conversation with our school's chancellor and his team on the question of AI within our school system. I also know that the governor had put forward a proposal in her state of the state around AI as it pertained to elections. So this continues to be work that we have to do. At a personal level, it is incredibly difficult to see images that you know to be fake, that are patently photoshopped and AI generated, and yet can reach across the entirety of the world in an era of misinformation. And there's the old adage about how quickly a lie can spread with a comparison to the truth. I think what we have to know is what the truth is. We share it with those, and then we also have to work to ensure that we have a city, we have a state, we have a country that actually has a regulatory system when it comes to AI. Because frankly, what it looks like today is a system that is ill-equipped for the speed and the reach of the technologies in front of us.
Once again, Mr. Mayor is short on specifics, but loves those non-answer answers. Just answer the question. Did you know this guy or not? So
that's basically the real question here. Right before you heard that, the reporter had actually asked about specifically the picture. Here's another one, right? It's a deep fake. But there is an email that shows that his mother was going to meet up right here with Jeffrey Epstein. So the question really is, Mr. Mayor, did you or did you not know Jeffrey Epstein? Did you know him? Did you meet him? And it's a simple, yes, I knew him, but I never had any real interactions with him. I went on to do other things. I was in college. Or no, I don't know anything about him. And other than maybe a chance encounter with, my mom or whatever, I don't know him. That's the real question. It's not this whole word salad, which this guy, whenever you ask him anything important, it's a word salad. That's what I picked up on the guy. I don't know what it is. Everything you ask him that is important or direct, it's a word salad. And that's the question is, what people want to know. Yeah, there's this deep fake. So we know the picture's fake, but the email is real. So do you or did you not meet him or know him? It's pretty simple. It's yes or no. Not this whole word salad rolling into misinformation and there's law. There's no law. What's AI? What's the law on AI? I don't know. Obviously, you don't want to use people's voices and commit crimes. Those are crimes, right? But what are you trying to say? If you put up a picture, that's a crime already. I know someone's trying to pass that bill in New York City Council right now. But, and it's a digital watermarking tool for identifying content that has been generated or altered with AI. It's an app, detected synth ID, which is what they did, right? To find out that this picture wasn't real. So, but there's an email that shows that maybe, all I'm saying is you got just come answer the question. Don't do this dodging the Matrix stuff, like Neo dodging bullets. Just answer it. No more word salads. Just if you're honest and transparent, you'll go a long way. When you're shoveling snow and then there's snow all over the city and it looks like Greasy Mansion was had everything plowed, but the city has garbage everywhere and snow everywhere for days and things stink. You're not being transparent, right? What's the answer to that? Oh, everything was shoveled, but it wasn't. That's all I'm saying is just be transparent. Just unbelievable. So, obviously, we're having a dinner coming up in March 11th here in South Florida, Casa Calabria for we're honoring Roger Stone and the Italian-American Civil Rights League. You can also join the IACRL by going to IACRL.org. Go there, become a member, and then you could buy your ticket and you could come to our event. We're going to have lots of events. We're kicking off the South Florida chapter or Florida chapter of the Italian-American Civil Rights League. And if you have any Italian-American blood in you, you come from a long line of Italian-American heritage, there you go. This is for you. We're going to be doing a lot in regards to the Italian-American Civil Rights League. So IACRL.org, sign up, and also come down to our event. And I don't know where you get your news. I don't like to go in these big search engines for a reason, because they'll show up with some deep AI fake picture. So you should be going to Free Spoke. Now, I know you're tired of searching on the web for things and not getting the results you're looking for. I have something for you. Free Spoke. Free Spoke is a search engine that is all about authenticity rather than agendas. Labels, media bias, no intrusions, or data leaking or your data being taken from you. Porn free, none of those ads, unlimited, unbiased AI, deep dive podcast searching, and you can get it by going to freespoke.app.link/Greco. Use the same link to get a 35% discount on your premium subscription. What are you waiting for, folks? This is the way of the future. Free Spoke. There you have it, folks. Greco 35. Get your 35% discount on your subscription. You could also use it like ChatGPT. It has its own AI. Not that you want to create AI images of people that are hanging around a formerly now deceased former billionaire, but that's what you could use it for. Frank Brescia says something interesting. Zoran playing the victim. Marxists are experts in gaslighting, propaganda, and misinformation. Quit crying. And Special Hagen says, I think the guy gets flustered and starts with the word salad to stall so that he can formulate a measured answer. There's a little bit to both. But again, it just sounds like just answer the question, guy. Answer the question. I don't get it, And then Baby Lou says here, the real question is how long the word salad's going to work. At some point, he has to get pressed and challenged more. I agree. He's the mayor of New York City now. We're not looking behind us. You don't have the swagger man with no plan. He's long gone doing his Bitcoin, Memecoin scheme or whatever it is. This guy's the mayor. So you got it. You can't be giving word salads. Everything you ask this guy, if it's anything that's important, it's a word salad. But there is one little last tidbit. Before we went on air, it seems that Mamdani finally endorsed someone for governor. And there was a little bit of news regarding the governor or the governor's wife in Florida, and here he endorsed Kathy Hochul. So let's play this video.
Finally endorsed Kathy Hochul for governor. That is not a shocker at all. Kathy Hochul picked Adrienne Adams, the former Speaker of the City Council in New York City, as her running mate. That's not a shocker either. You know what is a shocker? The Trump Justice Department is apparently dropping a case against Casey DeSantis, the wife of the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, for her $10 million Medicaid scam in Hope, Florida, which involves the Attorney General of Florida, James Uttermeyer. What's going on with that? Somebody asked Todd Blanche or Pam Bondi, what do you mean by we don't have the predicate to bring this case to the intake? What does that mean? What's up with that?
Yeah, that happened just before we went on air. And I also caught wind of this first thing. So before we get to the Hochul, Adams, and then Zoran Mamdani endorsing Hochul, this thing with DeSantis, I don't know. Like right here in this article from the Floridian, and Javier Mangiares is I know him. It's a friend of mine who wrote this article, but I didn't know about this at all. Came to the conclusion that there was no predicate to open up an intake on this. No further action is anticipated. This is from a DOJ source. Now, listen, there's a state case with this. It involves the Attorney General is also involved. It's a $10 million Medicaid fraud, scam, scandal, whatever you want to call it. But actually, it was the guys about to come on that came out with this before I did. I didn't know anything about this. So without any further ado to discuss this and more, he's the co-host, he's the producer, he's the wingman, and now he's on screen. Jack Stern. Welcome back, Jack.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sal. That was a very interesting video that we were just watching of Mamdani. I don't think that he's spoken about policies until he was asked about Jeffrey Epstein, and then he started going on a tangent about AI and how we need to control it because it's dangerous to children. Talk about narrative framing and diversion of topics. But no, as it pertains to Casey DeSantis, this all of a sudden kind of opens up the gubernatorial pool in a way that it wasn't open a week ago, because DeSantis had kind of shied away from running since she had been accused of taking $10 million from a Medicaid settlement and swindling it into a Hope, Florida account under her name. She clearly took the money, but now that she's been exonerated, perhaps she considers running on the Republican ticket, where Jay Collins hasn't really done enough to endear himself to enough constituents in Florida. James Fishback is kind of like the weird oddball X Factor candidate. And it's really wide open in terms of who's going to be playing second fiddle to Byron Donalds right now.
Yeah, I still think Byron Donalds is the favorite. I just don't know why why did they drop this case that's right now has a grand jury convened in the state? Obviously, Medicaid, it falls under the federal government as well. So, there's nothing in I don't know. That whole term is very odd. And listen, Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi have, not done such a great job running the DOJ. They're just using it and weaponizing it a different way than the last guy did with Merrick Garland. But I don't understand why this is not being looked at the way the state is, because it involves Medicaid fraud. So why is there's nothing to look at here. So basically now the state, which again, the state attorney general is in this case and he has to recuse himself. But how is the federal government was the checks and balances to the state case. So now you don't have a checks and balances. A favor could be called in and it's over.
Well, I think you've kind of answered your own question, Sal, because James Uthmeyer, who's the Attorney General for Florida, formerly served as the chief of staff for Ron DeSantis. They have a very long-standing relationship. So he clearly kind of did everything in his power to brush this under the rug. And in terms of the Department of Justice nationally, it's especially surprising that they dropped charges into DeSantis and dropped the investigation more specifically, because Trump and DeSantis have kind of butted heads a lot recently, with DeSantis most recently trying to run for president, exploring a run against Trump. So you would think, theoretically speaking, that there was a little bit extra incentive to go after DeSantis, yet they back away, drop the investigation, and you have to feel the worst for the people who are the most vulnerable, because look at all the people who had money that was supposed to be allocated for their health care bills stolen from them, by the governor and more specifically his wife. So the fact that they're not going to be getting any justice out of this is absolutely disgusting. And it speaks to the fact that the establishment is always stronger than the people. I mean, DeSantis is supposed to be working for us, but at the end of the day, he's watched his whole house of cards collapse in a very ugly manner. And now he's accused of very deviant behavior as well. So it's not looking good for him. And he's clearly not going to have a long career after he's done being the governor of Florida.
Yeah, no, this isn't looking good. And the only reason I caught it, and listen, on the Sal Greco Show, we like to stay informed on everything, including Florida, where we both live. So don't think I don't pay attention. I just didn't know about this little tidbit because I knew about the state case. I knew the feds were looking at it. And then all of a sudden now it just, oh, we're not going to look at this anymore. Yeah, it just, that doesn't sit right with me. And it doesn't sit right with others either. So something's going on behind the scenes, which usually does in these political cases, but then there's one set of rules for regular people and another set of rules for people that are in the know or in the circle, we'll say.
No, but this is another thing that took place that's kind of pertinent to the situation with DeSantis. James Fishback, who's probably the most polarizing candidate right now in American politics because he's only 31 years old and running for governor, the top political position in the state, came out yesterday at UCF and said that he would visit Brazil. He wanted to go to Rio de Janeiro specifically, but he also said that he wasn't going to be visiting Israel, which is problematic because a lot of the state's Jewish population is from there. So that's not a way to appeal to Jewish voters. And then David Jolly, who's running on the Democratic ticket. Remember, he was a Republican. Then he was part of an independent party. Now he's back to being a Democrat. Came out, condemned his comments, saying that Byron Donalds, Renner, and Jerry Demings, his Democratic opponent, all should be condemning Fishback. What do you make of Fishback? Because he's a very suspicious individual. No one really knows what he did career-wise. He's had all kinds of crazy ideas with no path to implementation. Most recently, he went on Tinder to meet with other young female voters. His fiance, quote unquote fiance, because she's kind of a suspicious character as well, ends up leaving him. He's kicked off of Tinder, which is very hard to do. It's kind of like a mess, his whole campaign. He's really all over the place, but I don't really know what to make of him.
Listen, in the rise of Zohran Mamdani, you could always find the next Zohran Mamdani, right? Maybe this guy is the next Zohran. He comes out of nowhere and lo and behold, he makes it all the way to governor with the fiance thing and Tinder or whatever else these guys are doing behind the scenes. But this guy, I'm just telling you, the Florida race has a lot of names, but I still think Byron Donalds in the end will be the next governor of Florida. I don't see anyone that is strong enough to even compete with him. Plus, he's got Trump behind him. And in this state, that's the golden ticket. So
$45 million of financial backing, too.
Yeah. So all of this is just a lot of, jostling for position or clout chasing or trying to set up their next career, whatever the next grift is. That's all this really is. The Casey DeSantis case, though, is and Ron DeSantis should be duly noted, right? But going back to the first part of that video, yesterday was a double whammy because Kathy Hochul decides that Adrienne Adams, the former Speaker of the House, also good friends with Ingrid Lewis-Martin, just so you people know, Adrienne Adams was chosen to be the running mate for Kathy Hochul. She would be the next lieutenant governor, right? And she was a Speaker of the City Council at one point. So what do you make of this first part, Jack? Because there's this first part, and it was obviously Mamdani did endorse Hochul this morning.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird chain reaction of events that Hochul chose Adams first, and then Mamdani ends up endorsing Hochul. And remember, Mamdani was out on the campaign trail raising money for Adrienne Adams to try and keep Cuomo away from potentially challenging him for the Democratic ticket. That was also kind of a weird, quirky situation. But anyway, this is all about appealing to and trying to reel in certain demographic bases in the upcoming gubernatorial race. As many of you will probably recall, Adrienne Adams most recently served as the city councilwoman for the 28th district in Eastern Queens, which is a very poor socioeconomic district, and it's primarily a minority community as well. 48% Black, 19% Hispanic. Roughly 3/4 of the constituents in this district are of the minority population. Adrienne Adams also happens to be African American. And Kathy Hochul, in the previous election and also in the most recent polls, has done a fantastic job with Black and Latino voters. So this is really a decision that ultimately put her over the top. She's now going to have someone going into these communities campaigning on her behalf. And then also Adams has great brand recognition amongst people who don't necessarily follow politics. So she's going to get them to show up at the polls and vote. That's really my take. It was about appealing to certain communities, and there wasn't much motivation aside from that. Remember, Hochul was floating a million different possibilities to be her lieutenant governor. Most of them were unwilling to leave their current positions to go on the campaign trail for her. Remember, Adams obviously served out her entire term with the city council, 8 years. So that was part of the motivation as well. But yeah, this is really about trying to connect with certain audience bases, and she's used Mamdani for the exact same purpose.
I see it too. Special Agent said things have gotten ugly. The Brooklyn Democrats have withdrawn their support because Hochul didn't confer with them first. That's crazy. But I think Adrienne Adams is well liked by Brooklyn Democrats. Therefore, that'll be like water under the bridge. And Baby Lou said that was a curveball. I thought the soccer mom was going to run with Hochul. And this is where, listen, you know, I played the video about Mamdani saying misinformation. You got a lot of these people on X or whatever out there telling you the soccer mom was going to run for that was never going to happen. Yeah, that's funny. That's all to everybody who wants to be a star out there and give you misinformation. The soccer mom was never going to be running mates with anyone. The soccer mom, if you haven't noticed, is worth, I don't know, $10 billion or so. She writes her own script to whatever she wants to do. If she wants to run for office, she doesn't need anyone. She's just going to do it. Her problem is she's the police commissioner at a time when the department is a disaster, and she cannot lead the department because she was never a cop, and it's been a disaster for her. So to even think the soccer mom, and now we have come to learn that her cousin and someone else had a very chummy relationship with a former, now deceased, unscrupulous billionaire. This is a problem for her. So to try to run for office when you're tied to a certain unscrupulous deceased billionaire will be a problem for her. She's going to have to try to sidestep that. And remember, she sold her residence, which was also in these files. So this will dog her in anything she tries to run from a political standpoint. I know New York is brainwashed. So the problem is Bruce Blakeman, nice guy. I would quit because you have absolutely no chance. And then remember what happened just a couple months ago, because Mamdani today endorsed Kathy Hochul. It was President Trump that basically said, I would walk around New York City as long as you're the mayor. So by default, what does that mean, Jack? Because how's a Republican going to beat all of that? They'll be playing that on reruns if they want to. I just don't see her. Yeah, this guy, Bruce Blakeman, just hang it up. You have no shot in New York State against Kathy Hochul.
There's a couple factors at play here. Factor number one, Blakeman only really has good name recognition. I talked about that with Adrienne Adams within the 5 boroughs. Blakeman only really has name recognition in Long Island, Nassau, and Suffolk County, and then also blue-collar communities within the 5 boroughs. That in of itself is not going to be nearly enough to win the gubernatorial race. Also, he doesn't have the union endorsements necessary to win, and he hasn't really done a good enough job on the campaign trail up until this point. He just doesn't come off, and he doesn't really shine as a candidate. And to win as a Republican in New York City, where Democrats have a very strong grasp on the state, you need to give them something to grab onto and reason to vote for you. I don't see why anyone would have incentive to vote for Bruce Blakeman. His whole campaign has revolved around lowering taxes and making America more affordable and the unsafe public safety issues in both Nassau County and New York City. All those things are good, but he hasn't really advertised himself as someone who's going to be changing things. He's ran pretty much based on his previous track record, which in of itself is not going to do it. So the total package with Bruce Blakeman, between the track record, the campaign message, the low popularity, I just don't see how he has any path to winning, especially when Kathy Hochul is so far ahead of him right now.
Yeah, I hate to say it, because many in New York look for a different direction, but it's unfortunate that you are run by a one-party system. All your vote, here's a problem. New York City is full of young people. They come to New York expecting something. They want to be a big opportunity, and people have promised them anything. You know, you don't have a pot to pee in, basically. What do? You vote for the guy that promises you all these different things. And that's what these Democrats always do. The Republican usually is a realist, but there's no real Republican Party in New York is a joke. It's all like one party there. So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get Kathy Hochul. You don't have anyone now going to run against it in the primary, because Mamdani, who has the majority, or the other half of the Democrat votes, just endorsed her. So they all listen to him. All the voters listen to him. He's hip. He's cool. He's young. He gives you a lot of word salads, but that's what they like. So, sorry, Hochul is going to be the governor there for the foreseeable future. And, Adrienne Adams will soon to be the next lieutenant governor. So we're going to see how that works. But, seeing today his endorsement, I don't know how people, if you're shocked about it.
This is perhaps the most shocking part. This in a nutshell is why the Democratic Party right now is struggling. Zohran Mamdani wrote an article explaining why he endorsed Kathy Hochul. He didn't actually explain why he endorsed her. He just said that he was going to be writing an article about it. There was a bunch of word salad, but he said, at its best, the Democratic Party has been a big tent, not because it avoids conflict, but because it channels conflict toward progress. Do you have any idea what that even means? He's pretty much to say we're not going to confront conflict. We're going to avoid it, and we're going to live in a beautiful world where there's flowers growing all the time. That's how I interpret it anyway. He's not actually working toward any progress. But anyway, he goes on to say, a party united not by conformity, but by a commitment to structural change and to the work required to achieve it. I assume here he's talking about what he did on the campaign trail and trying to raise awareness. He goes on, I'm not going to read it, but he goes on to talk about how Governor Kathy Hochul represents everything that he stands for, which clearly is true, because she was out talking about the ballot amendments that he was supposed to have taken a stance on months ago on the day of the election, right? Like, she's pretty much been his political grandmother babysitting him. The two parties almost have a symbiotic relationship. Like, they're so different, yet they realize they need each other. So they're kind of publicly supporting one another. But at the end of the day, it's Hochul pushing around Mamdani in Albany. And when none of his proposals are being passed, he's going to end up blaming her. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the 4 years when there's no free bus service. As a matter of fact, the MTA is going to start raising it because we need money. No city-owned grocery stores. No rent being frozen, because that's not feasible. And the rent guidelines board that he appointed said that they're not doing that. So, like, when all of the revenue is coming from Albany and the governor is not willing to fund any of your programs, are you going to push back and fight back, or are you just going to bend a knee like a little child?
I think, again, with this, they would never, him and Hochul, right? Hochul diametrically is opposed to many of the things that he had been proposing. But the deal was worked out a long time ago, from my knowledge. And, I got my ear to the ground with politics as well. There was something in the works behind the scenes that to get Mamdani's endorsement, Hochul's going to have to pass one of those crazy whatever one you think is more feasible is the one she's going to pass. But as far as everything else, from taxing Caucasians only in neighborhoods and free bus service and free rent, which can't happen, but there's a way to make the rent be stabilized lower. There was something that was passed in the past by the governor. De Blasio did it. Cuomo approved it. She's going to approve something like this. And that's the trade-off, because they don't agree on many of the policy issues that were presented to voters that you thought you're getting with Mamdani that you're never going to get. So that is the trade-off here. That's why you have this. But again, Mamdani, who's clearly, this guy he's got a lot to learn on the job. The word salads are getting it's ridiculous. Those all word salads. He's never been specific on anything. It's very rare when he's specific on something. And Hochul and him are just diametrically opposed as political, either candidates or political, we'll say governor. He governs the city and she governs the state. They just don't, it's not the same philosophy. It's actually just it's like a marriage made in hell. You have to give a little to take a little. That's all they're doing. That's all this is. People
It's it reminds me of cultures where they have arranged marriages where the parties don't even get to meet each other until the day of the wedding. And also, it's also funny in the sense that Hochul claims to be a Democrat, yet she's funded by Terry Pagula, who's nonpartisan, but also has funded a lot of Republicans. Mamdani claims to be a Democratic socialist, yet he doesn't have any socialist policies, and he can't even explain what socialism in its modern day form looks like. So, I mean, it's like both sides are kind of having an identity crisis right now. I'd make the argument, Sal, that the one policy that Hochul was going to make accommodations for has already been passed, and it's already been passed because it was in the works with Eric Adams as mayor. That is the universal child care bill that kind of reduced child care costs for a lot of families in New York City. That was the one bill that they kind of saw eye to eye on, and Hochul had been working on this for a long time. So now she's no longer obligated to freeze the rent in New York City, which would bankrupt all of the tenants and force a lot of them out of their properties and put more homeless people on the street. The city-owned grocery stores would never work because now you're trying to fund grocery stores with city money. So that means that Key Food and Publix and Whole Foods and Trader Joe's all have to merge into one grocery store. I don't see how that works from a private business component, right? So that's not happening. And then all of his other policies, the free bus service, you can't do that because the MTA needs to pay its employees and the unions are constantly petitioning for raises. So there's no way that's going to work either. You want to maybe fund Metro cards for low-income communities, provide subsidies that way. Okay, maybe you can find a middle ground, but there's never going to be free bus service. So you need to acknowledge that all of these things are never going to happen, and you got totally played before you can proceed forward and set a new set of expectations.
I just think, again, you'll probably get the stabilized rent. That seems to be the one that the governor has approved in the past for the mayor. That I think you're going to get some kind of reprieve. That's the one thing they're going to pass. That was the deal.
There's going to be a caveat, right? It's going to be rent frozen for 3 months. And then when those 3 months are up, you go back to paying market rate.
Yeah, it's going to be a caveat, but that was the deal I understand was made when they decided that he would endorse her, she was going to endorse him. So you just seen, once again, WWE being played out in front of your eyes. Sleepy Joe says once Kathy wins, she can openly screw all New Yorkers. So I think she already has been. If you're going to look at it that way. And, Eric Sanders in the chat says, I've been here the entire time. Great show. Yes. No to ad hominem attacks. We all know that's all the Joe Coppers, and there's plenty of others. At this point, like I said, you're just gonna get blocked. We're not the same. We're not even the same playing field. Okay.
We're just calling balls and strikes. It's like when the two umpires show up to a Major League Baseball game, one stands behind home plate, the other is on the bases. That's all we do here. No emotions, no attachment to anyone or anything. We just call it like it is.
Yeah, and Joel Ramirez, shout out to Joel. He's in the chat too. The Child Care Act is real big in New York City. That's true. That's another thing why he was getting some of the moderate people to vote for him as far as what Mamdani's policies are. But that's the trade-off, Jack, is I believe the rent stabilization is going to have a caveat, but she'll say yes. Okay, we're going to pass this at a certain point, which is already the deal that they made. So he'll get 1 out of 20 things accomplished, and he'll get reelected. Whereas the guy before him, the only thing he was accomplishing was partying to the break of dawn. His sheriff was running around and taking things out of people's legally owned marijuana. They were selling legal marijuana stores without a warrant. You know, there's a whole thing with that too. I don't want to get too much into it, but apparently Miranda he promotes people on a provisional list and not the people that actually passed tests to become lieutenants. There's a lot going on with the sheriff's department. I'm trying to get the leader of their union on the show to really dissect the New York City Sheriff's Department, which is and we now know that the NYPD has a car there, and we don't know why. Someone's got to answer for that. Taxpayers are paying for a car to be outside the sheriff's home for 2 years. What does he have to worry about, really? Is he worried about the guys he's associating with? Because that's probably, or the fact that he's basically legally hit people without a warrant, taking their stuff out of their stores and never return it to them. No vouchers, or they burning their, it's crazy. This is what New York City needs to recover from. I just don't think it can. You know, I don't think it. And some Baby Lou says, is the RMP still there? That's a good question, because it's been over a week that we exposed that. So we, if anyone, you know, it's in the 109 precinct. You know, why is it there? I don't know. Samara Cohen's in the chat says hello. How are you, Samara? So the next thing I was going to get to, I think we should get to, is we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. The whole ICE in Minnesota thing, right? But I think the president had to address something, because we realized that all the heavy-handed approach wasn't working, right, Jack? So let's hear the president on this.
And speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them. And then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made.
You know what's funny here, Jack? A couple of years ago, when he was running for president the first time, in Trump Plaza, he had a press conference, and he called that guy a sleaze. He goes, "You're a sleaze." I don't know if you remember. He called him a sleaze. That's Tommy or Tony Amos, right? That's the guy.
Yeah, and yesterday too, I'm sure you saw that he called out Caitlin Collins, and he said, "You're such a young woman and you never smile," and he was berating her. Yet every single time he's on Air Force One, private cameras have captured him and Caitlin speaking privately. And Caitlin always tells jokes about how he never sleeps and how attentive he is to various details. So it is funny. A weird WWE dilemma.
It is funny though, because he said he called him a sleaze. But I think we have seen that the challenges that we had mentioned on the show, we had Joel on, we've seen Eric Sanders was on, and he discussed this, the legal challenges that are happening with Homeland Security. First of all, we've also explained that they're falling under, two agencies are falling under one umbrella. The people that you are seeing are not all ICE agents, meaning they were trained by Homeland Security. Some of them are just stepping in by these other agencies. They're getting a 1-month course online. They don't know what's going on. A lot of these people, as you've seen, you've had some incidents now where a couple people are no longer with us. And that's a problem. And it's good to see that right now the president and DOJ have been sued, and in federal court, they're getting state challenges because Homeland Security can't be 100 miles off of the border. That is the problem. And they've been going around and doing all these things. And here, Bo Ludin says, ICE agents are currently going viral for drinking beer and watching anti-ICE rioters from a high-up window of a Minnesota hotel. I don't know why this is news, but whatever. But the problem with this, like I've said, is ICE, they're not trained to do certain things, at least a pack of people we've seen working. And that's why we're seeing this disconnect. So it's about time that you have to taper down the tactics and start withdrawing people, because we're not at war with our own people. I don't get why we're going around locking up U.S. citizens as well, because they're filming you with their phone. There's some of the tactics here, I got to say. And it's not like you don't look, again, with that back to blue stuff, it's not like I don't back Homeland Security or the men and women, the rank and file that work in uniform, but I wore that uniform, and those tactics are atrocious. And whether it's legal, remember the state versus federal law. The state always, when you're doing these jurisdiction runs, it trumps your federal law does not trump the state law inside the city when it comes to doing law enforcement activities, because you're technically a civilian because you're 100 miles off the border. Do you see how that works, Jack? And that's what they've been challenged on. And now you're seeing the withdrawal little by little because you were way too heavy-handed. And I believe there were other nefarious characters in the background because, as you know, Trump thinks like a CEO. What would a CEO do? He wants reports. So that means the people underneath him in these organizations run things the way they want. So that's what's really been going on here with this ICE stuff, because the real ICE people would know you can't be doing this heavy-handed, this many people, arresting people for stuff. They're not illegals or undocumented. So the whole thing is finally going to wind down the way it should have been since the beginning. I don't know who ramped all this stuff up, but it's got to be in a controlled manner. And I've said it again, the courts are not set up to even withstand all the illegal immigrants that they would put forth. So unless you fix this legislatively first, through the courts, then judicial, then you can start doing things. This is the mess that's been created.
Yeah, and it's really been handled horribly all the way around, right? From sending ICE agents into these cities that they were totally unfamiliar with really no help, right? I mean, that's kind of the stem and the root of the problem at hand.
That's another problem. There was
no collaboration between local law enforcement and federal agencies. And from that angle, Sal, I do believe we do need to give ICE a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, right? Because they're forced to go out and conduct these types of deportations where the perception about their agency is already extremely negative, and they're a lot more vulnerable to violent attacks because of that. And I mean,
but Jack, there's one thing. It is the prerogative of each individual police department or city, municipality to say, we don't want to cooperate with you, other than you're turning over someone that's convicted of a felony and has an ICE detainer warrant. Civil enforcement, which is what those detainer warrants are without being captured for a crime, really goes on each jurisdiction. That's the beauty of the Constitution, and each state has their own, and each city has their own. So it is what it is. Everyone has their own individual right as far as the little city, whether they want to cooperate. Now, we could discuss that all day long, whether that's right or wrong, but that's essentially what they're doing. And I understand we may not like that, maybe you should, but they don't have to, because it says they don't have to. That's people voted for that as well. So, what are you going to do?
The bottom line is that some of the tasks which the agency is now carrying out go beyond their intended purpose, right? Like ICE was not supposed to be controlling riots and going into private neighborhoods and kind of controlling the crowds there and going door to door and talking to private citizens. Their intended purpose is to conduct deportations of very violent individuals. And as such, their tactics are going to be a lot more violent, which is problematic because it's not transferable to other situations, right? Mm-hmm. The Minneapolis Police Department, the NYPD, any local city police department is trained to handle a large variety and different ranges of offenses on the spectrum, right? From murders to people committing petty larcenies at CVS, right? So they can handle everything. ICE agents, on the other hand, are sent out to go and conduct deportations and to extract people from their homes. They kind of use those tactics when they deal with everyone. That's not really what ICE was supposed to be doing. So it's problematic from two lenses, right? ICE was not supposed to be doing all these things, interacting with private citizens who were not illegal immigrants. Also, governors like Tim Walz and mayors like Michelle Wu and Jacob Frey need to do a better job of collaborating with the efforts and understanding that they need to help in order for things to go smoothly, because this is a very cautionary tale. If you don't have local law enforcement agencies collaborating with ICE, you are going to see riots and there are going to be wrongful deaths, right? So this is really the crux of the issue at hand here. We need better collaboration between agencies, and the local agencies, I'm convinced, Sal, can go conduct these deportations in a much more civil manner because they're familiar with the community and there's that level of trust which exists. When you're flying someone in from California to conduct deportations in Chicago, they don't know who these people are and they appear as an enemy because of the face masks and the reputation of the agency itself.
Yeah. I mean, Samara Cohen says, don't lock up the guy who prepared your breakfast. Which is what's going on.
One point on that with Samara, because we've talked about this a lot in the past. It's been a hot topic of discussion. Some people who are illegal immigrants in this country who have not committed a crime are going to need to be deported because we're financially bankrolling their families as American taxpayers. So that is a dilemma that's kind of at hand here. A lot of people are getting emotional over seeing children separated from their parents and whatnot, children being put in cage-like environments. But listen, it can be handled better, but we do need to deport some innocent civilians. Can we maybe take a closer look at how we're deporting people and handling this on a case-by-case basis, where if a single man who's been in this country for 20 years and operates a mom-and-pop grocery store that's essential to the community, can we make a one-time exception for him, but maybe not the family who got here 2 years ago illegally? That's the question we need to be asking a lot more. You know, we're not really exploring that side of it.
I listen, at a certain point, you're going to have to give these people amnesty. There's people that have been paying taxes. They own businesses. They just couldn't get whatever. They've been on hold. These
no green card. Yeah.
Don't have a green card, but they've been waiting. A lot of these people, I know a few that are still in the process. They're waiting for Homeland Security to call them in because they're supposed to get their green card. They've been paying taxes forever. They own businesses. Their families are all American. Can't deport this guy, but that's what they've kind of been doing. So again, there's a heavy-handed approach. It's way too heavy-handed. You went extreme, right-wing. Like if it's right or left, you went right-wing extreme. When Biden was there, they went left-wing extreme. You can't. You got to meet in the middle. There has to be a compromise where we both agree on. So I don't agree with deporting every single person or civilians. It's those, if you are a criminal with these gangs, you deport them. But if you've run out of people and they're all, I don't know where these gang members are there and hiding, wherever it is right now, then you slow roll and just look for people that have criminal convictions. That's how it usually goes. We don't go after the guy that makes you the breakfast. That guy's trying to do something. Now, I understand the labor, people are worried about them taking your jobs, but you know what? People aren't applying for jobs either. And they don't want to you don't want to work a lower wage the way these people want to. They're willing to work for low wages because that's how they could get their citizenship. So again, it's an issue all the way around, but that heavy-handed approach that we've seen where, you know, somebody puts a camera in your face or phone, or they're from a distance, you're walking over to them, or you're telling them, you come by here, it's going to be a long day for you. I mean, stop with the thuggery. That's, you know, don't lock up the guy standing in front of people. Yeah, don't do that. Like, these guys are working, and what you got to do is see if they've applied for citizenship or whatever they're doing. They're trying to make a living just like anyone else, you know?
The real litmus test about how successful this effort is will be in a few months when older people who are incapable of physical labor need help repairing their air condition, or their stove's not working, or their lights are out, or they need their ceiling painted, or any of these tasks which are being carried out by low-wage manual labor workers who are illegal immigrants in a lot of cases. That's going to be the real test about whether or not we need them. Also, the real estate developers and the property owners who are creating these large skyscraper buildings across America and using illegal immigrants to keep costs low. Like, if they don't have illegal immigrants and a pool to draw from, they're going to start to be upset about this too. So it'll be really interesting in a couple months to evaluate the impact of all this.
And right here, I see Eric Sanders said, thank goodness they're withdrawing these personnel. It's a total constitutional disaster. Some of it is really bad. Also, yes, professionally trained personnel should call out thuggery when we see it, which also is true. A lot of it was like thuggery. And Joel Ramirez said, when the apprehension of known criminals are under 5%, that's to tell you who are they shopping for? So, there's a lot, and it's a heavy-handed approach. I'm not big with that unless we got a group of people, but they're not doing that either. These are regular people that they're looking for in the streets of Minnesota. The heavy-handed approach was used because billionaires pay people to harass ICE agents. That's from IMP Franco. And guess what? You are correct. They are paying for those protests and all kinds of crazy stuff. But they're not trained to handle that kind of stuff, whereas police officers are. And the tactics that were used are atrocious. And I understand there's no help from the police department. There should be the outside barometer of trying to hold people back. That doesn't go on either. I get it. I get the argument all the way around, but I think it taking people, scaling this back a little bit it's best for all parties involved. And shout out Frankie Paliguacci, $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. I already had cafecito this morning, but I'm going to have to go again. He says the truth is always attacked. Like, share, and support the Sal Greco Show. And likewise, people should be supporting Frankie Paliguacci because he's a good man. And, it's just everything that's going on with him. It's very hard to take for me personally to hear his story. But again, there's a lot going on with ICE. There's a lot going on with Homeland Security. And then, of course, there's a lot going on with someone who, I guess, tried to assassinate the president and was now convicted in court. No? Did that not happen the other day, Jack?
Yeah, so Ryan Rue, who attempted to assassinate Trump, and I'll get the article up here momentarily on your screen, he was convicted and sentenced to a life sentence in jail. And right after getting convicted, he actually tried to stab himself in the neck with a pen. So he tried to commit suicide. His lawyer, I think, tried to bring up emotional insanity about it as well. But the bottom line is, Sal, it feels like, we do live in an era of political hostility, but there could be another assassination attempt on the president's life at some point in the upcoming future. Knock on wood, we hope that doesn't happen. But with Ryan Rue and Thomas Crooks taking place in Pennsylvania, and then obviously the killing of Charlie Kirk, which took place in Utah back in September, this is an era where there's been a lot of attacks against the right. And President Trump, for the amount of scrutiny he's taken over the past few months, he seems a lot more vulnerable right now.
Yeah, and also you got to set the tone. And enough with these, these people that run around and you want to do something crazy like that, then you should get a life sentence. Just like anyone else that commits a crime like that. If you're trying to assassinate the president, he got, I think it was life sentence plus 60 years. So I guess they'll have his bones in his cell, and they're just going to keep him there for 60 years on top.
And remember that Aline Cannon, who sentenced him to the life sentence in Fort Pierce, Florida, was appointed by President Trump as well. And she said at the end of the trial, you tried to assassinate a top presidential candidate and you almost succeeded in your sick plan. And then she sentenced him to a life sentence in prison. It was almost like a movie.
It really was. I'm like, that is, he deserved it. And I hope that this never happens again. And it should be a warning that you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life and you'll never see the light of day again if you do something insane like that. The violence needs to stop.
Thankfully, Rue was caught before he could even attempt to take President Trump's life. He wasn't able to get in a spot where he could take a shot or get a good scope of him. So thankfully, the attempt was thwarted beforehand. But you wonder if there's going to be increased security because President Trump has kept his security presence pretty constant throughout his entire tenure as president so far in the 1 year that he's been back in office. And with all of the violence, do you try and increase security? Because at the end of the day, Thomas Crooks was still able to get on that roof to try and assassinate him. Ryan Rue was still able to get to the golf course where he was within, a stone's throw of President Trump. I know he didn't, get his gun out or whatever, but either way, these are two guys who masterminded plans to assassinate the president, and they came dangerously close to doing so. So as a result, reactively speaking, you need to increase your security detail.
Yeah, you also have to make it pardon proof because let's just say someone who doesn't like Trump gets elected in 2028 to office.
Oh,
they could
Lord.
pardon him because he's a crazed schizophrenic. No. These kind of people, 60 years plus, life plus 60 years. And that means, I think, for the full duration, maybe we'll find his bones in the cell. I'm joking, though. I'm just saying. But it is funny to think of something like that, right? Because he's never going to see the light of day again. And the last thing we have before we get to the Super Bowl predictions is who you have the mayor of Baltimore, right? What was he doing? He had an Eric Adams moment.
Yeah, before we end the show with Eric Adams himself, we thought that we would show you a very Eric Adams clip. And I'm going to say that Brandon Scott, who's the current mayor of Baltimore and had kind of an Eric Adams-like rise where he was part of the city council and then he became mayor. Remember, Eric Adams was a state senator, borough president, and then mayor.
Yeah.
He likes to be lavish and he likes to live a very nice lifestyle. And he got this very nice new car that's going to be transporting him around town, which costs $163,000 of taxpayers' money. And here was his response when he was asked about it at a press conference.
We get it. We understand that your station has this severe right-wing effort underway. We get that. But you also, you guys are dragging this thing out and also not including all the facts. A vehicle that was purchased in 2023 is not the same price as 2025, right? You have to understand that reality. When you look at, I'm talking, you can listen to, let me talk, please. Your question now for 3 months. We understand that when you look at a base price for SUVs, base price of SUVs now, as you know, between $90,000 and $100,000. You're talking about a police vehicle with police equipment on it added on top of that vehicle. It's very simple. And when you look at these are not astronomical costs, right? You guys in your station in particular would never ask the president of the United States how much the beast costs. You wouldn't do that. You would never do that. This is ridiculous. Let it go.
So the difference between the president of the United States and the mayor of Baltimore is the mayor of Baltimore has a very small constituency base that he has to serve. And what's with the history lesson talking about how cars in 2025 are more expensive than cars in 2023? That's basic car economics. Anyone who's been around a car, owned a car, leased a car knows that. So that rationale is totally ridiculous. Also, he's talking to us like we're a bunch of narps, like we are just regular people who don't understand law enforcement, right? So he's saying, oh, you have to put all of these devices in the car that makes it cost a lot more money. So you're going to get the newest model, and then you're going to put all of the bells and whistles in the car, which is going to cost taxpayers more. How are you trying to rationalize and justify this? You didn't answer the question, and then you blame the outlet who asked it as being a right-wing centric media outlet. Come on, horrible all the way around.
Hey, I think that guy and Zohran Mamdani have a lot in common. It's called a word salad, and you just spin the wheels and never answer the question directly, and you'll get away with it. Nobody ever challenges you. What the hell was that guy talking about? I didn't address the question. Yet this, and you wouldn't ask the president this. You can't listen. You're the mayor. The president and mayor are two different things, and you don't have an official vehicle. So I don't know what the hell that's about. It's another word salad. All these guys with the word salads, you got to love it. Same thing with the soccer mom. It's always the same thing. When you're in charge, just give an answer. You'll actually go up. People will never stop voting for you if you just give an answer. Being transparent. When you're trying to hide things and you're blaming other people, they're gonna hate you. They're not gonna want this guy. He's like another Mamdani. He's a Mamdani out there in Baltimore. Yeah, you're a white right wing, whatever he called it. What the hell was that about?
Well, he called the reporter. He said to the reporter, "You work for a right wing media outlet," and then he said, "If President Trump had done the same thing that I'm doing, you wouldn't be calling him out for it." The only difference is that he's the president of the United States. You're the mayor of one city.
Is the reporter a dark, sick person? That's what Sleepy Joe's saying. Yeah,
Sleepy Joe, that's the comment of the day.
Special Agent says, I'm curious about what the previous mayor rode around in and how much that car cost. I mean, are taxpayers paying for that car is the next question. You have no right if that's the case, which probably is. I don't think that's his personal car. So
No.
You got to be careful the way you talk. You politician, you run in the city, you run something. Don't give a stupid answer like that. You know, it's just a stupid answer. But Jack, we got the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts on Sunday?
Ooh, it's going to be a really good game. And the Seahawks opened as 3.5-point favorites. That spread is now up to 4.5 points. You know what? I think Sam Darnold's going to win a Super Bowl. I am taking the Seattle Seahawks in a very close game, beating the New England Patriots 27-17 and covering that point spread. I want a payout from everyone who's taking my gambling advice as well. So let me know what you think in the comments.
I'm going with the Patriots, and I think they win by either 3 or 4 points. I don't know if it's like 21-17 or 31-28, something like that. Seahawks will be exposed because they're just a good defense. But if you have a defense that matches theirs, which the Patriots do, you're not going to go anywhere. Sam Darnold is still the guy from the Jets, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the Patriots. And we'll see. I think they either cover the spread or just barely fall off. So it's either be 3 or 4 points. It's going to be a close Super Bowl. But once again, the Super Bowl is upon us. So the winter is almost over. We got 6 more weeks of winter because the groundhog saw a shadow. Thank God it wasn't dropped like it was a few years ago with Bill de Blasio.
That was one of the worst scandals of all time. I was hoping that you weren't going to bring that up, but now that you did, let's just reminisce on that and remember it for 1 second. De Blasio accidentally dropped the groundhog on its head. It was knocked unconscious, but nobody saw. The groundhog was then put in a package or a bin or something like that and take it out. And then they brushed under the rug the fact that de Blasio literally murdered, because he dropped it on its head and started laughing about it because he didn't realize what happened. He literally murdered the groundhog that predicts how much longer winter lasts. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio.
He killed I never forget that. The groundhog, I think, bit him. It's just bad. Yeah, word salad training is right. I like that one. Baby Lou says, looks like these mayors are going to do the same thing. Word salad training. It is
WST. There's an abbreviation for it.
WST, word salad training. You get that from the best. If you're a Democrat, especially, it seems to be a big thing with them. I don't know why. So I guess hope everybody's going to have a good weekend. I think the country got a little warmer. Thank God, the deep freeze is over for now. And we'll be back on Monday. On Monday, might have a little announcement on my own. I think we're going to do it on Monday, but we'll be back at it at 11:05 Monday morning. Don't forget, IACRL.org, Italian American Civil Rights League. You become a member, and also don't forget to purchase your ticket to come to our dinner. We'll be honoring Roger Stone and announcing a bunch of different things when we're there. Also, if you have Instagram or TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, follow at the Sal Greco Show. That's where we're at. You're going to see plenty of material. Also, news bits like you saw today, and then we'll discuss it on the show if it comes to that. And, of course, follow us, the Sal Greco, on X, on Instagram as well. Also have a Substack. You could also go to my Substack, the Sal Greco, because I do write some articles there, and I give some exclusive content on there as well. But you got to be a paid subscriber. So I figured I'd do that because people have been telling me you should have your own Substack. Okay, so I'll try it out. I wrote something about Steve Bannon with a certain unscrupulous billionaire, and there's plenty of it to talk about with that. So go to my Substack at the Sal Greco. And I guess that's it, Jack. We'll see who wins, the Patriots or the Seahawks. We wish everyone well. I hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll see what the soccer mom does next in the New York City Police Department. She's certainly not running for office, though. So with that, I'm going to say I hope everybody have a great weekend. Have a great Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see you Monday at 11:05. And until then, we're signing off from a now cool, not much warmer South Florida, which, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, And in the Daily News today, it was stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book. And it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been recovering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man, that in the book is stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book. But that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.